Is the ACC as we know it in its final weeks or at least final months of existence? Well, we're going to talk about that in this episode, which is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino and Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner Attorneys at Law. We're also going to talk about how my team, the team I follow, the team I'm a fan of, the West Virginia Mountaineers, could also be part of this discussion and how they could be impacted by it. And it may not be what you think. We'll have that discussion, and I'll explain myself right after this word from one of those channel sponsors. Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident or fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. What is up? Welcome into another edition of Couz's Corner. Come on in, make yourself comfortable, belly yourself up to the bar, and let me, your host, Couz, serve you up a shot of top-shelf college football news and analysis. On tap in this episode, we're focusing on conference realignment again. That's right in the middle of the season. I get it. We haven't talked about realignment on here in a little bit, but we're going to do it again today because the topic is on my mind. It's kind of coming to the forefront yet again. And West Virginia, in the way I view the tea leaves, could potentially be involved in this scenario. Now, let's start off in the first segment talking about how the ACC could implode. Even though that topic hasn't really come up for a while, it has been on the mind of a friend of the show, Greg Flugar, over at College Football Speak Around the Corner. And what brought it to the forefront is Greg is hearing from some of his sources that the dissolution theory of the ACC, where the ACC has half their members vote to dissolve the league, is actually on the table now. Whereas in the past, he didn't think it was. He's saying it's actually on the table now. And what he's hearing could be potentially pushing that is this talk about the SEC and Big Ten forming a scheduling agreement. Because if those two leagues form a scheduling agreement, they're basically pushing the ACC and the Big 12 out of playing their schools, potentially, in the non-conference. And they are also increasing their revenue, potentially, widening the gap between themselves and the ACC and the Big 12 even more. And if they do that, according to Greg's sources, if they do that, it would basically prevent the Big Ten and SEC from expanding again, which means teams like North Carolina, who had hope of getting into the Big Ten or SEC, teams like Florida State Clemson, who had hopes of getting into the Big Ten or SEC, it might lock those teams out because the new revenue generated by this scheduling agreement, if they add new teams, then they're not making any more money. The revenue they would be making would have to go to the new teams. So what would be the point in doing the agreement if you're then going to turn around and add teams that you have to divide the money with? So it might actually stop those two leagues from expanding. And if that happens, the ACC teams have two choices. A, that we stay in the ACC and continue to let the Big Ten Big Ten and SEC separate themselves, or the brands in that league who feel like they deserve more, they band together, vote to dissolve the league, and go form a new league backed by private equity money. That's right. The bad word, the no-no word, private equity. Folks, whether we like it or not, private equity will be coming into college sports. There are Super League proposals out there, both backed by private equity money. And there are leaders at ACC schools, part of those groups proposing it, including North Carolina AD Bubba Cunningham. Bubba Cunningham is one of the ambassadors for what is being called the College Student Football League. It's the very first Super League idea that was proposed, where you have 70 teams coming together. We've all heard about it, right? It's basically been shot down by the Big Ten and SEC. They want no part of it. And without them, it doesn't work. There's also been other proposals out there. But again, without the SEC and Big Ten, it really doesn't work. So maybe you get 10 ACC schools, which is the number that would be required to dissolve the league. You get 10 ACC schools to vote to disband the conference. We've already heard about the Magnificent Seven a couple of years ago. Brett McMurphy reported on the Magnificent Seven schools: Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Virginia, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, North Carolina State, all meeting and trying to figure out ways to get out of the grant of rights. We heard rumors there was an 8th school in those conversations. We never were able to confirm who the 8th school was. Was it Louisville? Was it Duke? We don't know. But according to Greg's sources, don't rule Duke out as one of those teams, one of those 10 teams that could vote to dissolve the conference because they want to stay with North Carolina, and North Carolina wants Duke to stay with them. They want to stay attached at the hip. The rivalry means too much to them. And obviously we know North Carolina and North Carolina State are both part of the same Board of Regents. So them staying together would be a no-brainer in that regard. Who would the other teams be? Could it be Syracuse, who also is their chancellor? Kent Syverud also happens to be an ambassador of the College Student Football League. Maybe Syracuse is one of the 10 teams. Who would be Team 10? I don't know. Could be Louisville. Could be Pitt. Could it be Notre Dame? I don't know. I don't think it would be Notre Dame. But it could be. You don't know. But nonetheless, the dissolution theory looks like it could be back on the table, especially if the Big Ten and SEC decide to do a scheduling agreement to separate themselves even further financially from the other 2 power leagues and really the rest of college football, rest of college athletics, and that for that matter. So we'll see. Now, for the West Virginia people watching this, and even the rest of you for that matter, might be asking, Couz, what in the world does that have to do with West Virginia? And if those ACC teams form their own league, how would that impact West Virginia? Well, first and foremost, before I get into that, I'm going to give a shout out to my other sponsor. If you're looking for a new sports book, look no further than our friends over at BetUS Online Sportsbook and Casino. Right now, on your very first deposit, if you use promo code YouTube150 at checkout, you get a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit. Your next 2 deposits, you can get 125% bonus up to $2,000. Again, with promo code YouTube150. Take advantage of that offer today if you want to place a bet and are looking for a new sports book. Also, don't forget, though, if you play, you must be 18 years of age to play legally, and make sure you play responsibly. What in the world, Couz, does this new league with ACC teams, how in the world would that affect what? Well, first of all, the first way it would affect West Virginia is it means those teams wouldn't be coming to the Big 12. At least the teams forming that league wouldn't be. Now, maybe the teams that get left out, like the Wake Forest maybe, or the Boston Colleges or whoever, maybe they go to the Big 12. Maybe Stanford and Cal go to the Big 12 or go back to, and reform the pack somehow, be part of the pack again. Don't know. But it would mean those teams wouldn't. It would mean North Carolina State, Florida State, Clemson, whoever's part of the 10 teams forming the new league would not be in the Big 12 at this point. But it could also mean, would West Virginia partner with those ACC schools to be part of this new conference? And what made me think about that is when Greg brought up the proposed Super League of the College Student Football League, who, by the way, has their own website if you want to go check it out. West Virginia President Gordon Gee was also part of that group. He was one of the advocates. Now, to be fair, so was Kirby Hocutt from Texas Tech. And I'm pretty sure if this new league forms, Texas Tech would not be a part of it because they're too far out west. And one of the reasons for forming the league would be to reduce travel. And speaking of reduced travel, it's one of the biggest issues West Virginia's had since being in the Big 12. Now, let me stop for a minute. And for all you Big 12 fans, West Virginia likes the Big 12. They rescued West Virginia when the Big East was falling apart. I think the school and the conference have been good for each other. So it's not that West Virginia just loathes the Big 12 or hates the Big 12 and can't wait to get out. There's none of that. The fact of the matter is, West Virginia is desperate for money, folks. They are last, and I know they won't say that out loud, but just look at the numbers. It's kind of obvious. They are one of the bottom teams in the Power Four in revenue. They have one of the highest, their athletic department is one of the highest in debt service probably because of poor decisions made by previous athletic directors, potentially even Dr. Gee himself, who knows. But nonetheless, Previous leaders at that university have gotten that university athletic department in major debt. They haven't brought in enough revenue. They're near the bottom in that. They need a financial boost. And if there's enough money behind this enough money from private equity behind this new conference, it could potentially give them that boost. And the private equity money might even be there to help pay their way out of the Big 12, potentially. Despite West Virginia's recent struggles on the football field and even some recent struggles on the basketball court, West Virginia is one of the most valuable brands in the Big 12. Every data point, every metric backs that up. They're one of the highest in fan support, one of the highest in TV viewership. They have one of the most popular brands in the league. All the data backs it up, despite their recent struggles or recent mediocrity, let's put it that way, on the football field. The brand still holds value. And I'm sure the private equity firms see that value. Don't forget about merch sales. They're one of the highest in merch sales. Social media activity. All those metrics, West Virginia is at or near the top of the Big 12 in all of them. That means something. And if you put them in a conference with teams in their region, their fans will travel to games. Their fans will watch games. You put them in a league with Virginia Tech, the Black Diamond Trophy game, if Syracuse is part of it, get the Schwartzhalter Trophy the game back on the schedule. If Pitt happens to be a part of it, you get the backyard brawl in conference. They could form a rivalry with Virginia, who, oh, by the way, they just scheduled a 2-game series with on a neutral field for 2026 and 2032. You don't think in those conversations that maybe this potential new conference may have come up as part of the discussion? Potentially. West Virginia has good relationships with the president of Clemson, who, oh, by the way, was at West Virginia before he went to Clemson, Jim Clements. Jim Clements is a very highly respected and well-known president. He's on a lot of committees, on a lot of boards. He still loves West Virginia. He still comes back and visits occasionally. Maybe relationships matter, folks, in college sports. It matters in every walk of life, to be honest with you. Gordon Gee has relationships with people all across this country because of how long he's been in the industry. He's been college presidents at multiple schools. Heck, a lot of these ADs and presidents at other schools have worked for Dr. Gee at some point in their careers. So don't be surprised if West Virginia is trying to set themselves up to be a part of a potential new conference. Now, I have no source telling me this is happening. I have had someone reach out to me and tell me that this league has plenty of backing from networks. There are networks and or streaming services lined up to be partnered with this new potential league, that it would be more valuable than the Big 12 is today. Now, you wouldn't be getting games in 4 time windows, but you would have enough teams in the conference. If it's a 12 or 14 team conference, you would have enough games to spread out from noon all the way through the evening. You may not get any 10:30 p.m. games, but you could get some 7 p.m. games. You reduce your travel. You have value. You have brands like Clemson, Florida State, West Virginia, Virginia Tech, Virginia, maybe Louisville. I don't know. Heck, maybe Notre Dame. I don't know. I look for Notre Dame to eventually land in the Big Ten, but heck, who knows? Maybe they could be a part of this. But it would reduce West Virginia's travel expenses, which have been a huge issue for them since being in the Big 12. Your fan base may be more engaged because you're playing regional opponents. They will be traveling to games more often. Your brand gets out there more often. College football is more popular in the eastern part of the country. I think that's been proven. It would help recruiting. Think of the recruiting hit West Virginia has probably taken since they've been in the Big 12. And again, I love the Big 12. I'm not throwing shade at it at all. But geographically, it's harder to recruit when most of your away games are played in other time zones, man. West Virginia could get back to recruiting more and probably being more successful recruiting the southeastern part of the country, including Florida, because most of the games will be closer and in the region. So I think West Virginia could benefit from it. I also think the league could benefit by having the rivalry games with West Virginia and regional rivals. And heck, who knows? Maybe Cincinnati becomes part of it too, or even UCF. I don't know. To me, that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Why would you just trade Boston College, Wake, and somebody else for Cincinnati and UCF? I don't think that makes any sense. But I don't know. But whatever it is, I think this makes sense for both parties. It would make sense for West Virginia to get themselves in a more regional conference where they could cut their expenses down when they're desperate to cut expenses. They could increase revenue by partnering with a private equity firm as part of this league. And you would have a lot of valuable brands playing each other each and every Saturday in college football. And heck, maybe even basketball. I'm not sure if this would be a football-only move or not. But it would make sense to do it, even more sense to do it in those sports because of the games in the middle of the week. So what do you think? Do you think West Virginia, first off, do you think the ACC will dissolve and this new league will form out of the top brands from the ACC? And if it does happen, do you think there's a chance West Virginia could be part of it? And do you think maybe Gordon Gee and West Virginia University are trying to position themselves by being on these, Super League committees and, having conversations with Virginia about scheduling games and all this? Do you think West Virginia is potentially positioning themselves to be part of a new conference that may form out of the ACC, out of the top ACC schools? I want to hear your thoughts. Want to take this opportunity to give a shout out to my VIP channel members of this episode. They are Bill G, Phil Masters, Hellbilly, Tom Reinhart, and Brandon Bailey. Thank you all for your support. If you want to join the channel, become a VIP member, hit the join button below or on my channel homepage. Also want to give a shout out to my sponsors again, BetUS Online Sportsbook and Casino, and Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner Attorneys at Law. If you're looking for a personal injury or medical malpractice attorney in the state of West Virginia or Virginia, give them a call at 304-999-HURT or look them up at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. Don't forget to check out the Honored Athlete trading card link in my description box to get yourself some Honored Athlete trading cards. Help me out. I'll make a small commission, and you'll be helping your favorite student athletes earn NIL money. And you'll get some great, awesome-looking trading cards in the process. I appreciate you tuning into this episode. Check out the one in the corner of your screen right here. You may like it too. I hope the rest of your day or night is top shelf. And don't forget, as always, win or lose, to Q Country Roads.